Before I say anything else, I need to ask you something. And I need you to sit with it for a moment before you answer. Who told you who you are? Think about it. Who was the first voice that shaped how you saw yourself? Was it a parent, a teacher, a man who left? Was it a church that mishandled you? Was it a mirror you stopped being kind to? Was it a failure that felt too loud to argue with? Because here's what I have discovered. Most women are living their entire lives inside an identity that was handed to them by someone who was never qualified to define them. And today that changes. Welcome to Her Identity in Christ. I am so glad you are here. Welcome, 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 Praise, to the very first episode of Her Identity in Christ. I am your host, mfonobioma. The fact that you are watching this episode right now is not an accident. God has a specific word for you today. Not general, not vague, specific. And I want you to receive it that way. Now, I titled this first episode, She Was Always His, and I want to tell you why. A few years ago, I went through a season where I genuinely did not know who I was anymore. I was doing ministry. I was serving. I was showing up. But on the inside, I was empty in a way I could not explain. I had given so much of myself away to people, to roles, to expectations. And when I finally got quiet enough to ask the question, God, who am I? I was terrified of the silence that followed. Because I realized as well, I had been living in a borrowed identity. An identity built from what I did, what people said, and what I survived. Not from what God declared before any of that existed. And the moment he began to speak, the first thing he said was not about my ministry. It was not about my assignment. It was not even about my future. You were always mine. And something in me broke open in the most beautiful way. That is what this episode is about. That is what this entire channel is about. So settle in. Open your heart. And let us go back to the beginning together. I want us to start in Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5. This is one of those scriptures that sounds familiar, but I want us to read it today like we have never read it before.